Tonight, day one of common entrance disrupted in some examination centers in the southwest and northwest regions of Cameroon, but the exercise unfolded hitch-free here in the littoral region and other parts of the country. We tell you how it happened in this newscast. Also ahead, the Defense Minister Joseph Betia Somo has said that soldiers who molested a suspected Ambazonian leader in the southwest region of the country last weekend would be brought to book. And in the second part of this newscast, our guest will be coming back to the origins of May 20th. Should the day be celebrated at all? We talk about this and more when we come back. Stay with us. We shall be right back. Good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you for joining us in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinoxe Television. As the Anglophone crisis deepens, condemnation of violence and the call for dialogue have continued streaming in from within and out of the national territory. The last came from the U.S. ambassador to Cameroon. He said that the country can only intervene if the two parties agree to invite him on the dialogue table, or that he can only intervene when the two parties invite him on the dialogue table. Let's have the details with Babla Jonathan.
Condemnations of violence have been rising to the sky from within and without Cameroon. Birth killings, torture, abduction, destruction of properties have continued gaining grounds in the northwest and southwest regions.
Nous avons condamné la violence des deux côtés.
We have condemned violence from both sides. I think it's very important to stop violent acts. We have called on the two parties to stop violence and begin dialogue to solve the problem.
Un dialogue pour résoudre ces problèmes.
The call for dialogue has also been coming in from all quarters, but critics say it is not working. According to the United States ambassador to Cameroon, continuous violence is the major stumbling block to dialogue. Every act of violence makes dialogue more difficult. I know that many are saying we are tired of listening to the word dialogue again and again, but in fact, it is the only solution. The U.S. ambassador has made it clear that his country will not intervene if not invited to the solution quest. The two parties have to invite us to facilitate the process. If they don't agree, we cannot do anything. On the fight against the Nigerian terrorist sect Boko Haram, the United States of America is urging the Cameroon government to go beyond military solution and develop the northern regions.
La lutte est à la longue haleine, ça va prendre du temps.
The fight will take time, but I must say that even if we have a military cooperation with Cameroon and partners in the Lake Chad basin like Nigeria, Niger and Chad, the solution requires a more global response. Development and social aspects are also as important as the military aspect.
Les aspects sociaux sont aussi importants que l'aspect militaire.
According to the United States ambassador, development will bar the way to terrorism.
And ahead of the National Day celebration, administrative and military officials here in the littoral region of Cameroon are stepping up efforts to enhance and preserve national unity, the culture and values of living together. It was the purpose of a sports walk across the city of Douala that was this morning led by the littoral regional governor Samuel Dendone Ivahadibua. He has been preaching national unity and the values of living together. Let's hear him in the following excerpt.
Morning, we have seen how the military, gendarmes and police and so on are working together, practicing sports. This is to show that they are struggling against the enemy, a common enemy. They are struggling to make our country be a peaceful one. And we are just encouraging them to do so and to help people to be in secure mood. And let's say that this Unity Feast is the one who is gathering all forces, even populations, hand in hand to have a common nation and a strong nation.
And on to something else, the sit-in strike on Mondays has been a respected tradition in several parts of the northwest and southwest regions of the country, precisely in towns and villages. But the atmosphere in Kumbo Bui division of the northwest region of Cameroon was a particular one this Tuesday, as streets were dry with only few motorbikes and persons spotted. It was a similar scenario in markets. As we can see, the gate of the Kumbo main market was opened, but the sheds were simply closed. The people refused to talk on camera, but revealed to a reporter on the ground, Chris Confon, that they were scared to open their business premises. That was the atmosphere in Kumbo this Tuesday, the 15th of May 2018. And the minister delegate at the presidency in charge of defense has reacted to the video that went viral on social media and condemned by many, exposing military brutality against a suspected Ambazonian leader. Minister Joseph Bitia Asomo, in a release, has stated that the soldiers acted against the law in force and would be sanctioned accordingly. The release added that the man in the video, called Alphonse alias General, was apprehended on Saturday the 12th of May 2018 by elements of the National Defense Forces for terrorizing civilians in the English-speaking parts of Cameroon and masterminding the killings of gendarme officials. The minister said that his ministry would not relent in the fight against terrorism and for the preservation of the country's territorial integrity. The release, it should be noted, failed to state whether the suspected Ambazonian leader was killed in the course of the brutality meted on him. That was last Saturday, the 12th of May 2018. We now talk about the atmosphere that reigned here in the country's economic capital Douala as far as the written part of the common entrance examinations are concerned or is concerned. It took place hitch-free. But Innocent Aze tells us in the following report that security was beefed up in some examination centers. His report.
At the Lycée d'Aqua Accommodation Center, candidates from different educational establishments were accompanied by their parents and guardians. But security measures put in place restricted them from trespassing the gate. Only the common entrance candidates who underwent a thorough search were permitted to enter for the morning session, which began with reading comprehension. Only candidates who presented their acceptance slips and school identity cards were authorized to write. Those who forgot theirs at home were obliged to go back for it. Examiners were on campus as early as possible to assist the pupils to identify their classrooms and other developing issues, including ill health. They equally urged the candidates to be relaxed and put out fear as they write.
Nous sommes là pour vous aider à composer dans les meilleures conditions possibles. Donc n'ayez pas peur.
Those who arrived late were directed and ushered into their examination hall. Others who did not find their names on the list of candidates to sit in for the common entrance examination were allowed to write upon the authorization of the Littoral Regional Delegate of Basic Education, who embarked on an inspection tour in some accommodation centers in Douala. To him, everything unfolded in a serene atmosphere with no obstacle of whatever form. After the common entrance examination, these candidates will, after a break, begin preparing to write the first school leaving certificate exams, which will ferry them into secondary school.
And Innocent Aze, the reporting on how the day one of common entrance examination unfolded here in the economic capital Douala. Day one of the common entrance examination was disrupted in some parts of the southwest region of Cameroon, precisely in the southwest regional headquarters of Boya. According to reports, pupils at the government bilingual high school BGS Moliko wrote the arithmetic paper 1 before the sound of gunshots scared them away from the school campus. The pupils missed out on the arithmetic paper 2 and English paper 1. and to access into the examination halls. It should be noted that it's practically difficult for our reporters that are deployed in the two Anglophone regions of Cameroon. We are closely following up developments. We would be telling you more on that in our subsequent newscast. Now, several public and private companies in the country have been hit by protests from disgruntled workers, and we are still counting the number of those workers in companies across the national territory that are going on strike on daily basis. The most recent demonstration was at the Yaoundé Center for Rehabilitation of Handicapped Persons, where workers want management to step down and equally pay their salaries. In the following report, we shall be looking at the series of incidents that have happened in companies across the country. Details in the following report.
We are tired of being slaves. We are tired of working like robots.
It is just 4 months gone into the year 2018, and the prevailing tense social and political climate in Cameroon indicates that all is not well in the country. Besides the unrest in the northwest and southwest regions, the previous months have been marked by street protests of workers decrying the non-respect of contracts and low salaries. Those at the forefront of the public demonstrations are farmers, like was the case in Jombe, workers in construction sites in Bamenda, Japoma, trade unionists, student lawyers, and the most recent case being that of the personnel at the Center for Rehabilitation of Handicapped Persons in Etogobe, Yaoundé. These aggrieved workers dressed in black have three major demands: the payment of accumulated social benefits, months of salary arrears, and the resignation of the general manager, who has been at the helm of the center for 20 years now.
Il est nécessaire que le chef de l'État procède au changement à la tête de cette structure.
This workers' representative at the Rehabilitation Center, Etienne Roland-Go, further explains that only the general manager and his assistant are entitled to the benefits of the institution, which to them is outright injustice.
De 2009 à 2018, seul le directeur général et le directeur général adjoint ont bénéficié des avantages et rémunérations.
He continued that series of meetings have held, but a fruitful outcome is still awaited. There are signs that these grumbling Cameroonians would persistently go on strike, as security forces have always been present to prevent them from expressing their grievances. We now take you to a roundabout in Kongsamba, Mongo division of Cameroon, begging for development. The roundabout is known as Carrefour Abattoir, a locality where an alleged bandit was brutally murdered. That was several years ago. The government of the country promised to bring development into that area, but nothing has changed several years after. Simanji Kangebre in the following report presents the picture of Carrefour Abattoir in Kongsamba, Mongo division of the littoral region of Cameroon. His report.
This is quarter 10 in Kongsamba, Mongo division of the littoral region, also known as Carrefour Abattoir by many who inhabit the area. An inhabitant tells us that the name Carrefour Abattoir came as a result of an incident that occurred in 1998. The name came at a time when the crime wave here was very high. So everyone mobilized and caught up with a thief that we killed at the roundabout. That is how the name was gotten. 20 years after the government promised to develop quarter 10, nothing has changed, with several homes still constructed out of makeshift materials. A resident says the government should listen to their needs. We don't have roads, not even reservoirs for water, and we lack so many other social amenities. These three things we want the government to help us. When it rains, one can't even move. The school that is also in Carrefour Abattoir is under very poor state, with its roof almost taken away and people studying in very unconducive atmosphere. The head teacher of the school says the school's population has reduced due to its poor infrastructure. It is very difficult. This is so because this is a school that has trained many who are now in key positions. It's my second year here. It hasn't been easy due to the poor state of the infrastructure. The population of the school has dropped, with many kids living. Apart from the poor state of roads that has hindered the development of Quarter 10, residents of Carrefour Abattoir lack even potable drinking water, with all taps remaining dry. Insecurity that caused the popularity of the area hasn't also reduced, as they continue to live in fear. Another danger in the locality is this falling electricity pole with cables lying on the floor. The inhabitants who have beckoned on the company in charge to no avail have only decided to go about their normal activities until the day it will be repaired.
And that brings us to the end of this first segment of the news. Time for us to meet our guest tonight. We shall be right back. Tonight we are going to be receiving a historian and a political analyst to talk about May 20th celebration, Mr. NGINDO GILBERT. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Talking Point. You are welcome.
Thank you, Mimi. Thanks once again for being here to talk about sensitive issues, especially concerning the 20th May celebration, which is the feast of unity at the moment when the country is at the brink of unity breakdown. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. You talked about sensitive issues. Before we talk about the May 20th celebration, the theme and the significance of the celebration, we would like to get your reaction following this outing of the Minister of Defense, following the video that actually went viral on social media. The Defense Ministry that has stated that the suspected Ambazonian leader was simply apprehended, and that the soldiers that could be seen brutalizing him in the video that took many by shock would be brought to book. What do you have to say about that?
What is clear about that video is that there are two things that must be clear. Social media videos are something that can no longer be doubted because they are taken from the scene. So we can't doubt that. We can doubt information that's written and posted on social media. But when it comes to social media videos, they are what are filmed and sent for people to view. That's the first thing. Secondly, I know that the Minister of Defense, the Minister Delegate in the Presidency in charge of Defense, must have been touched by that video himself, like all other Cameroonians. Every Cameroonian who knows actually what the defense force, the military precisely is supposed to do, supposed to be act in a republican way, is no longer observing the rules under which it's supposed to act. I want to think that that video has held every Cameroonian who has had to see it, or had to see it, in a way that if you do not have that emotion, if you don't have the heart to actually watch it, you wouldn't be able to see it through, because it portrays the military. I'm happy you said purported, supposed to be, believed to be, which means that the person in question may not as well as he can be. So what if he is? Is that the procedure? What if he is not? Is that the procedure? These are the questions that are supposed to be asked around what the army did. Why will somebody who is supposed to be, where the facts are not yet established, be caught and maltreated so inhumanely, so primitively? Permit the word, but that is the way it happened. I believe that the army is believing it. Military issues are not even things that are supposed to be reported anyhow, because they are very sensitive. They have to do with defense, and so they are supposed to be very sensitive. any person works his or her mouth to talk about military issues in any way doesn't know what he's doing, because they're secretive issues. They do with the defense of the nation. But when the military that is supposed to be Republican acts that way, it calls for concern. It invites talks. It invites commentary. It invites everything that can be said around it. I think that the Minister of Defense should not only limit at level of saying that those who did that are supposed to be caught to book. Let it be done, and done specifically. Let it be done and done publicly in a way that the whole nation, what are we talking about here? Is that what living together is all about? Is that what we are preaching in this nation? Somebody who is suspected is tortured more than before the 19th century, when slaves were treated in the West Indies, treated in the territories where they were captured, treated across the Atlantic Ocean, pushed into the mouths of sharks in the ocean. That torture was above that, which calls for concern.
The outing of the defense ministry is an indication that even the ministry which is in charge, which controls those armies that were perpetrating the act, is totally against what actually happened in Manfi.
Well, what we can say there is that I do not think at my level every Cameroonian has the right to comment on the action of the army in that part of the nation any way he likes. But as an individual, I want to feel that the action of the army is getting extremely ultra-virus. Ultra-virus in the sense that when we look at, if you evaluate the rate of deaths in the Anglophone area of Cameroon, you will find out that you will be clear. Statistics are there on the table, verifiable, confirmed, that those who suffer more are innocent civilians. And when we talk of these civilians, who are they? Old mothers, old fathers, children at dependency ages. Tell me, what can an old man of 50 and above carry a gun to do? What can an old woman of 50 above carry a gun to do? They go out burning their houses when the children who are the fighting level had already evacuated the villages.
So should it just end
what do we think
at the level,
can be done again?
Should it just end only at the level of criticizing the video when we have other atrocities being committed on the ground, like you have been stating?
That is why I am saying that the minister, if the minister thinks that what has been done by army is not supposed to be done, let him act as the minister. He is this authority of that service in this nation. Let him call those who perpetrated the act to order, to justice, and let justice take its course, and let it be known by the whole nation. At least it will appease some people somewhere in this nation who can contribute very anonymously to the relaxation of tension that has gripped this country.
Of course.
Some people will be appeased. I am sure that somebody somewhere will be appeased. If those guys who I saw throwing water in legs and beating, I mean, the life of a human being was no longer sacrosanct, what it is supposed to be, what the constitution of this country is supposed to protect. That was thrown into the dogs. Human beings were thrown like in the ancient USSR kingdom, state, where human beings were, their feathers could be pulled off and water thrown on them like fowls. I mean, what I saw was a fowl, not a human being.
That was a general
It wasn't
reaction,
a human being.
Mr. NGINDO Gilbert. Now, we talk about the National Unity Day. That is, preparations are upbeat across the national territory ahead of May 20th. That is going to be taking place, or holding under the theme, Cameroonian citizens, let us remain united in diversity and preserve social peace for stable, indivisible, and a prosperous Cameroon. What is the perception of social peace, Mr. NGINDO Gilbert?
I wonder when any person in Cameroon now, no matter who the person is, I don't care if the person is the head of state or who, talks about living together again, when the arms of government have been structurally linked to one man alone, when you look at the arms of government in this country that are supposed to be independent from each other in order to ensure the social justice, in order to appease all Cameroonians feel belonging, in order to ensure the corporate credibility of all the ethnic groups of this country, despite which angle they are coming from. When you look at the legislature that is closer to the executive is structurally linked to power. The judiciary is structurally linked to power. The army that is an arm of defense, although is which is an arm under the judiciary, is structurally linked to power. The whole thing now gives a fictive picture of democracy, which no longer appeases any person. What kind of living together are we talking about? The whole country, Cameroon, is now ruled under special instructions by the President of the Republic. The Constitution, I wonder if there is a constitution in this country. That is to be very honest. Because when you find every reform or everything that is done, economic, social, political, cultural,
it's linked to
you
the
will
executive.
hear that the President are giving instructions, the President, as if it is a country that is ruled by a king. It is a kingdom. It was a monarchical, there were monarchical regimes before the 19th century in Europe, precisely where the king instructed, I have the impression we're living in Cameroon like that now, where the head of state instructs, There is nothing that is done in Cameroon now according to the constitution of the country.
Are you saying that the day is not worth celebrating, May 20th?
No, the day is worth celebrating, but what are we celebrating the day for? Let me ask a question to all Cameroonians, not only to you. The question I'm asking all Cameroonians is the team that has been worked out now. Who worked out the team? Where from where was the person working out the team? And what parameters has the person put in place so that the team not only be celebrated, be implemented? These are the questions I want Cameroonians should answer before we go marching on, we go celebrating, we go whining and dining in the presidency. These are the problems. If we want to live together, are we thinking of what is going on in the part of the country? Sometimes I wonder if most Cameroonians have been asking this question, not I alone. I move around all around in this country, and there is this question. Many people are thinking that only the English regions have the problem. Are we sure Boko Haram has ended? Are we sure the problems in East Africa have ended? Are we sure that the economic problems, the debt and everything that this country has, are they resolved? When are we estimating that they are supposed to be? To whose detriment are these problems supposed to be resolved? These are some of the questions until this country answers this question, we cannot be talking of living together when there are so many things that if they must be resolved, somebody's leg has to be smashed upon.
Like some observers hold that May 20th, especially that of 2018, should be that time for an opportunity for reflection. Especially on the current socio-political crisis in the northwest and the southwest regions of the country. Why not bring all the actors on the table and seek a way forward as far as the crisis is concerned? Do you share a similar view?
Until the time comes, because believe me, on the 20th we are 5 days now. We are 5 days now to
something
the 20th
can happen between
May.
now.
No, Mimi, we are in sub-Sahara Africa, where very soon you will see the president inviting his invited guests from somewhere to come and wine and dine with him. You will see regional governors inviting.
Would that be the dialogue that people are talking, inclusive dialogue?
If that is the way they want dialogue to be, so be it. But I wonder if it has any productivity. That's the problem. If whining and dining with state dignitaries, those that are pro him, are prone to his ways and want to continue that whining and dining with him. Well, but one thing is very clear, that if the toe is paining and the head hasn't yet felt it, there is time, because the veins will gradually carry it to the head. I know this. If some people somewhere in this country feel that what is happening in the English zone is not affecting them, gradually it is going to affect them someday, because if they really feel, if they are sincere that this nation is one and indivisible, like it is pronounced every day, it is the mouths are worked from everywhere. By every government ministers are good at saying that. I heard some of them during morning calling, saying that calling people idiots and calling everybody any kind of thing. Let's be careful the way we say things, because after the crisis there are people who will be judged, and those people who will be judged will not be only those that are categorized as a secessionist.
Everybody
was just looking at his function.
What is the historical significance of May 20th before we go?
The significance of May 20th in this country is an event that is irregrettable, because when you look at what happened before the country came together under the unitarian system of government, it is regrettable. A one-sided referendum, a one-sided question that was posed to Cameroonians to make them feel that where you are voting we, it is no. Where you are voting we, it is no. Where you are voting yes, it is yes, was sent to Cameroonians. Well then, if and only if after the referendum, the two cultures that came together, what Aijo said in the United Nations, I quote him, if our English brothers feel like joining us, they are doing that on equal footing, end of quote. If the equal footing was maintained after his one-sided referendum, which he pumped in money and ST Mona used to flash points at West Cameroon to get West Cameroonians vote for that. If the two cultures were maintained, if the good footing, if the equal footing was maintained in Cameroon, we would have been crying today. We would have been happy people today. The problem is that some people were caught and they were submerged. They were swallowed. And they were, it was believed like some people need to kneel down for others. And that is where
the government is going to argue that many English-speaking Cameroonians are not demanding for separation.
That is the government.
What do you expect? Why not organize another referendum? Is it a possibility, Mr. NGINDO Gilbert, before we go?
Let the government test Cameroonians. Let the government test English Cameroonians and see if only some people are that. I want to feel that the marginalization got to the level where it became unbearable to every least Cameroonian, every children in primary school. History is taught down to primary school. When you teach them, you see the way they feel. When you teach them up to any level, you see the way they feel. The government should mend its ways, because there is no way, I repeat, there is no way the history of this country will not be taught to Cameroonians. And when you teach the history of this country to Cameroonians objectively, you tell them actually what happened, they feel it. This problem will live forever, and if the government doesn't take concrete steps to redress it, this problem will one day materialize into what living together will no longer be what we are talking with mouth now. It is going to metamorphose to something else that even Cameroonians themselves will no longer be able to handle it, because you cannot imagine that people will be saying living together. We live together, but when you look at the disparity between an Anglophone and a Francophone, just from psychological reasoning, at one side you see somebody who is very docile and is ready to accept any kind of thing, and at one side you see somebody who is ready to question why I'm doing this. At one side you see another person who is trained to fear, and another one who is trained to respect and be humble. I mean, the characteristics are so different. The characteristics are
they
so
should be respected at every level.
I mean, the differences are too there that if we must live together, the differences have to be harmonized somewhere, and no one has to be submerged. No one has to be submerged. Let's be clear about it.
Thank you so much, Mr. NGINDO Gilbert, for joining us tonight on Talking Point. We hope to have you some other time again.
Thank you very much. I was happy being here.
Thank you so much. It was our pleasure having you with us in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinoxe Television. That is Mr. NGINDO Gilbert. He's a historian talking about the May 20th celebration and significance. They're bringing us to the end of this edition of the Primetime Newscast on ETV. We thank you so much for joining us. Wishing you a blessed day in the company of our programs. Until we meet again, goodbye.